friends, welcome back. Here we are. We have done the C. We are rounding the corner with the P, and then we're going to jump into the R. And so we should be connected with God. And actually, Jesus is the end game. It's not when we get somewhere. It's not when we quit flipping our lid. It's not when we finally forgive. It's not when we finally process through that trauma and have a narrative. It's actually being fully alive, fully available, fully present, doing what He's invited us into with the grace for the day, and doing today what we can so that we can do tomorrow what we can't do. And so as we talked about the P, the psychoeducation with the brain, and then we did top down and bottom up with our amygdala. Again, I want to reiterate, we started with connection for a reason. We started with our connection with God because that's more important than the air that we breathe. And so whether or not our lid's flipping, whether or not we're doing this perfectly, whether or not things are resolved, whether or not we've totally and we're free and clear, whether or not we have all of our questions answered, it's about being connected with Him. We connect with Him as if our life depends on it, as if we need Him more than the air that we breathe. And it's not really as if we really do, and whether we feel like it or not. And then we sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. There's rest and restoration. And so I just want to reiterate again, it's not about when we stop this or when we obtain this or when we get to this destination or we don't flip our lids or we do this perfectly. It's about the process and our capacity to experience Him and to process all of our experiences with Him and to then advance the gospel of the kingdom. And so it's really important we keep that in perspective. And so how are you? How are you doing in the middle of this? And it's not a one and done. And you don't get to then just cross this off the list and never do it again. It's just like washing clothes or making your bed or maintenance on your car or oral hygiene or going for checkups. I mean, it's just part of life. And with our mental health, it's really, really important that we discipline our minds and what we think about and that we have that kind of perspective. And so with that, I told you we were going to keep the brain really simple. And so we've done the brain basics. We've talked about the amygdala, which is the smoke detector or the fire alarm in our brain. And now I want to talk to you about my last favorite part of the brain that's really applicable for this class. And again, we're making things really simple with biblical principles and neuroscience so that we can really change our brain and change our life. And so that part of our brain is called the Reticular Activating System. And I like to just, for simplicity's sake, call it the RAS. And so we've already talked about every experience that you have on planet Earth actually comes in through your brain. That's how things become a part of your conscious awareness, through your brain. Now, the brain is so complex. We've talked about it's more complex than even the most vast solar system. And I don't know how we could not encounter God and Jesus in the fact that everything was made by Him and with Him and for Him, and He holds everything together as we study our brain. And there are certain principles in the scripture that He tells us what to do and not do. And if we don't do those things, then we will, whether it's on purpose or just by default, we're actually sinning and we create brain damage in the sense that we've got patterns in our brain, ways that we think and ways that we process through the lens of sin. And so now as we jump into the reticular activating system, I want you to know another statistic. There are 2 million bits per second of information that's coming into your brain. Every second, 2 million bits per second of information enters in. Now, you can only focus on 5 to 7 pieces of information in 1 second. And so the things that you need to focus on, again, your brain is organized for survival and simplicity. And so I want to teach you about how you can focus on what you focus on. And I want to teach you about how you can really make a point, or if you're trying to impact someone, how you can impact them and how you can order the brain to see what you need to see. And as we think about then how do we determine what we're going to focus on? That's your reticular activating system, your RAS. Your RAS is a filter for all input. And so it's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. Let's go back to the soil for just a second. If you've ordered your brain to see the negative, if you haven't prepared your soil, you automatically in life are going to end up in a pit somehow. You end up in a pit. You know about Jesus, but you haven't had an experiential knowledge of Jesus. And now you're crying out to him and you're asking him, so where are you? And why won't you show up? And why can't I hear you? Why can't I see you? Why can't I experience you? It's not what you look at that matters. It's what you see. And the Bible talks about we seek first the kingdom and then everything else will be added. We seek him in the good and the bad and the ugly. And if you haven't learned to experience him and to seek him and to know him in the quiet times, how in the world in the middle of a crisis are you going to experience him? If you haven't focused on the things that you're supposed to focus on, if you're under a great deal of stress and pressure and you haven't healed from the trauma from the past, if you haven't forgiven from the sin that's been done to you, and if you haven't quit sinning, and if you haven't stayed within the lane about what you're supposed to think about, and when you're bumped into what spills out of you, if you haven't done the hard work, again, make no mistake, you will do the work, whether you do it on the front end or on the back end. You have to do the work to order your brain and to focus on what you're supposed to focus on. You're supposed to focus on things that, again, are pure and praiseworthy and lovely and noble and just. And Jesus could be right there. He is with you. The Bible talks about that he is with us always, that he'll never leave us or forsake us. And if we don't learn to engage with him and have a conversation with him, if the only time we're opening the door and shouting out of our house is the things to him that we need and expect him to show up and do right here and right now in the way that we need him to show up, if we're making our own Jesus and we want him to look like what we think he should look like and to do what we think he should do and to say what we think he should say, then we've created our own God. I think about learning to drive. One of my friends, she adopted a son from Africa. And he came over here and he learned English and he grew and he got involved in school. And then eventually he got his driver's license. And when she was teaching him how to drive, she didn't take him into rush hour traffic and she didn't have him get on an on-ramp on a busy highway. She took him into the back roads. And so if we're not preparing our soil, he's right here, but how do we experience him? And if the only time that we cry out to him, we're demanding for him to show up. And if he doesn't show up, or if we don't see him how we want to see him, and if he doesn't meet the needs that we're expecting him to meet, then we say that he's not there. That's so wrong. And it's so unfair. He's a creator of the universe. And in fact, as many of you know, we work in the areas of anti-human trafficking and those who have been prostituted. And do you know the definition of prostitution? Intimacy for personal gain is prostitution. And so if I'm going to have intimacy with Jesus just because I need him to show up, if I'm going to fast because I need him to show up in this particular way, if I'm going to call upon him and I'm going to give him a deadline that he needs to show up in this way during this time period, or if I'm going to tell him how he needs to run the universe, because of course, I know better than he does. Or even for you all, if I'm learning about all of this and if it's not a personal experience with him, what overshadows me is going to overshadow every environment that I go into. And I can't teach what I don't know personally. And so this has not been so that we could have a video series. It's not been so that we could impact multitudes of people. It's because I have an intimate relationship with him. And because I know him and I love him, I want to see him in his heart. And he's invited us in to seeing people set free. So I don't learn these things so that I can do a class. I don't cry out to him so that I can have a particular need met of my own. Intimacy for personal gain is prostitution. He's a creator of the universe. He's worth ordering our brain for. He's worth doing the hard work. He's worth tending to the soil so that I can encounter him. And it's not a one and done. It's a lifetime. And it's a beautiful process. So I want you to begin the process of ordering your brain. Again, we talked about the scaffolding in our life that we put to prop our soul up so that we'll feel better about ourselves and that we'll be able to fulfill what we think are these desires that we have with the creation instead of the creator. And that will never, ever, ever, ever work. But the King of the universe knows the number of hairs on our heads. And the King of the universe wants to be right here with us, even in the middle of a pit. So imagine what was going on in Peter or Paul or the disciples' reticular activating system with how they ordered their brain. With Peter, when he was crucified upside down, when he denied Jesus and then led 3,000 to Christ, when he was filled with the Holy Spirit, when he advanced the gospel of the kingdom, when Peter and Paul, when they were stoned or when they were imprisoned or when they were persecuted, in the good and in the bad and in the ugly, it's not that good things will always happen and bad things won't. It's that he'll be with us always. And we have to order our brain to find him, which leads me back into the very beginning at the connection with God. Every environment that you're going into, every transition that you're making throughout the day, you're supposed to be looking for Jesus. Consciously, you have to make an effort to look for Jesus. Where is he? What is he already doing? How could you thrust people towards him? How could you be a part of what he's already up to? It's not even that we have to create something, but he's already available. He's already moving. He's already doing things. And could we recognize that? And could we have a thankful, grateful attitude and press in towards him? Or are we self-absorbed and rebellious and full of pride and crying out and asking for something that we already have access to? We got 100% of him, 100% of the Holy Spirit when we accepted Jesus. And he is with us always. It's actually about us changing our perception and us ordering our brain to be acutely aware of his presence. We'll never get more of him than we already have. We will just get a different perspective. And that's what the reticular activating system is. So let's think about the practical application of all of this. Many people spend their entire lives reacting to what they don't want to be or don't want to happen instead of purposefully bringing heaven to earth. And so we've said this again and again, what you behold, you become. In the direction that you look, you will go. If I'm going down the mountain and if I'm looking to the side and I want to go this way and I point my snowboard this way, but I'm looking this way, eventually this is a direction that I'm going to go. And so what we behold, we become. I can't say that enough. What you behold, you become. What you look at. When you start to fast and you're doing a brain fast and you quit thinking about the things that you shouldn't be thinking about and you're ordering our brain and you're disciplining yourself and you're doing the things that you need to, you can't just get rid of the old and it creates a vacuum to be filled with something else. And it will fill those God-shaped voids in us that we filled with things that aren't optimal, that aren't him. We'll fill it with something else. We'll fill it with another part of the creation if we don't fill it with the creator. And so as we create those voids, as we fast from certain things, we need to fill it with something else, and that something else has to be him. And so instead of thinking about, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to eat junk food today, I don't want to eat donuts, I don't want to eat ice cream, I don't want to eat Peeps. My favorite food on the planet is Peeps. Peeps, you know, those things you get at Easter. I usually get enough at Easter to space out throughout the year. But instead of thinking about, I don't want to eat peeps, I don't want to eat peeps, I need to have a visual image of who I am and what that person looks like with the goals that I have so that I'll be able to do those things. And then with that image that I can go on moment's notice in and out of different countries to advance the gospel of the kingdom and to work with people that are in devastation and that have heartache and to teach CPR. And if I have to go halfway around the world or if I have to hike into a village, somebody that's able to travel on airplanes for 16 hours and not respond to jet lag, or to be able to hike into mountainous areas, they don't have a consistent diet of peeps. And so instead of saying, I don't want to eat peeps, I say, this is what it is. This is what I want to look like. And then I put into play, I already make decisions, and that's what I focus on. And so I want to show you, here's a pink flamingo. Look at this image. Love this color. I mean, this is my favorite color. I try to always have on some form of pink. And my poor husband, he's just embraced it. We have pink curtains and a pink bedspread in our room. And so I love pink. Today I've worn a pink shirt. I have a pink cup. I have pink curtains. I have a pink bedspread. I have pink pillows. I even have a pink chair. In our therapy room here, I found a pink velvet chair and everything was redecorated to go around that pink. But no matter what your favorite color is, I don't want you to think about pink. Not my pink shirt, not a pink chair, not the pink flamingo that you're looking at on the screen. Do not think about pink. And so let me ask you, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about pink. And so what do you have to do? If I say don't think about pink, then you have to actively think about something else. Again, not thinking about pink is creating that vacuum and that void, and you have to replace that vacuum and that void with something or someone. And we don't want to just create that void to replace it with something or someone. We don't want to replace it with the creation. We want to replace it with the creator. So this is so good. Let me read this to you again. One more time. So many people spend their entire lives reacting to what they don't want to be or don't want to happen instead of purposefully bringing heaven on earth. So don't think about pink and you're thinking about pink. I don't want to drink. I don't want to eat peeps. I'm thinking I don't want to eat peeps, but I'm thinking about peeps. I'm obsessed with peeps. And by the time I am done thinking about I don't want to eat peeps, then I'll end up going and getting peeps. And then if I've eaten peeps, I might as well have bakery cake followed by barbecue chips. Or even more practically, I don't want to be like my father. And we become mean and angry and bitter, and we accidentally repeat the same exact cycle, and we do the same thing that we said we would never do, and we focus on him that stirs up these things in us, or we go in the direct opposite, but it's not out of being healed. It's out of this bitterness and this anger and this resentment, and we'll do everything we can to not be. And so this is critical, the reticular activating system. Now, I've talked to you about, I have 3 dogs in my house. They're all Boston Terriers, and they are adorable. And so I love dogs. I saw this picture of this dog, and I want you to see it. This isn't one of my terriers. And in fact, my Boston Terrier, her name is Lila, and she actually has a tongue that sticks out like this dog. But I want you to look at this picture of this dog, and I want you to count the things that are in this picture that are pink. And so you see the pink balls, the 3 in the bottom left corner. You see the 2 by its elbow. You see the pink bow. You see the pink in both of the eyes. You see the pink tongue. You see the pink chin. And then on the right side by our logo, you see 2 more pink balls. So how many pink items were in this picture? Go ahead and look this picture over again from top to bottom and from left to right and right to left, and make sure that you get a good look, that you evaluate everything in this picture. And I want you to count how many items are pink. Okay. Now I'm going to take the picture away, and I want to ask you, You scanned the picture from top to bottom, from left to right, from right to left. You scanned the picture really well. We scanned it together and then you scanned it again. How many blue items were in the picture? You have no idea. And so why? Because your reticular activating system, your brain was focused on the pink. And so what does this have to do with anything? What about if I meet somebody and that somebody reminds me of someone else subconsciously? Because of my imagination, because of the feelings that I get, maybe there's some behaviors that that person has that then my brain associates with somebody else in a sequence of events from the past. And then I make a judgment about that person that they're not necessarily safe. I don't necessarily know why. I just can't put my finger on it. And then I decide that I don't like that person because they're not trustworthy. And then I'm going to go spend the next 5 days with that person. And I've already ordered my brain to find the pink, to find the things that will not be trustworthy in that person. And so that person could do anything. And I've already ordered my brain to find the untrustworthy things. They could do 100 trustworthy things, and they could do one that slightly reminds me of somebody else who broke my trust and caused harm and pain to me in the past. And that's what will stand out. What you order with your brain will bring to you. Let's do another example. I wake up today and I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. If you think like this, if you wake up in a bad mood, if you decide that today is going to be terrible, you might as well just stay home. Because what you've done is you've ordered your brain then to go throughout your environment and to find everything that solidifies that. And that is exactly what's going to happen to you. And so instead of being pure and praiseworthy and noble and just, instead of attracting the good things, instead of looking for the good things, instead of being thankful, instead of being filled with Jesus and bringing his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, you've already ordered absolute chaos and misery. And you're focused on the wrong thing. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to eat Peeps. Today's going to be terrible. I just get this bad feeling from this person. Why are we like that? Why do we do that? Why can't we order our brain to be and to have the mind of Christ? That's what we as Christ followers are supposed to do. And so I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I think this is worth a good look. Let me show you the video called The Monkey Business Illusion. And I want you to go along with the video and do exactly what the video says.
The Monkey Business Illusion. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball. The correct answer is 16 passes. Did you spot the gorilla? For people who haven't seen or heard about a video like this before, about half missed the gorilla. If you knew about the gorilla, you probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color or the player on the black team leaving the game? Let's rewind and watch it again. Here comes the gorilla, and there goes a player, and the curtain is changing from red to gold. When you're looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected events. And that's the monkey business illusion.
So your job was to count how many times the players in the white shirts passed the ball. And the correct answer was 16. How many of you got it right? And if you hadn't seen it before, Did you notice the monkey? Now, I have a short attention span, and not only did I get it wrong, and not only did I not see the monkey, let alone the curtain changing colors in the background, but what you order your brain to focus on, your brain is going to see. And so this is really, really important. Your reticular activating system is really, really important. So let's go back to survival and simplicity. We've said this over and over. And so your brain is constantly interpreting what is in front of us based on our past experiences. So if you're in a new situation and your brain is constantly pulling on the things from the past to make sense out of what is new. And so you need to order your brain. You need to have those structures in your brain, the neural pathways that are created that aren't sin patterns. You need to be in process of healing from your trauma and know what to do when you flip your lid. And then we need to order our brain and to expect what Jesus says to expect, that he'll be with us always. So it can always be pure and praiseworthy and noble and right and just, whether we're in prison, or we're being stoned, or we're going to be crucified upside down, or we're in the good or the bad or the ugly. That's what we're designed to do. We pull on the past and we pull on our experiences with him, and that he's with us always. And so what's the last thing he's done in your life? What's the last thing he said? And if you're not having daily encounters and even hourly encounters with him, if you're not focused on him, if you haven't prepared your soil, your heart may be hard and dull, but eventually it will soften and you need to press in to him. And so again, with survival and simplicity, when you're meeting somebody new, you're constantly sizing them up and trying to make an interpretation that is very difficult to change. First impressions can be dangerous. Once you decide something, then you file that because of simplicity into your subconscious, and you don't revisit that typically again. So you've made judgment. That's why it says, don't judge. Judge not, lest you be judged. It's really, really important that we start to then, when we meet people, then we start to partner with wonder. I wonder what they could be like. I wonder why they're created. I wonder what Jesus sees when he saw the disciples and he knew that they were a hot mess. He prophesied over them that they were salt and they were light. When Peter blew it, he pulled him in and he connected with him and he fed him breakfast and he didn't condemn him. He actually blessed what he was doing when he went back to his day job, and he saw the wonder in him. And he's like, Peter, I know where you are. I know what you've done. I predicted that you would deny me 3 times. But Peter, I'm going to predict what's going to happen. At the end of your life, you will actually give your life for me and be crucified upside down. And so we know then how to navigate with people that aren't necessarily safe. We don't give them free reign and access into our lives. If there's sharks and piranhas, I'm going to have peace and I'm going to love everyone equally, but they're not going to have equal time with me in my inner circle. And so I'm going to spend my time with people who are thrusting me towards God. And I'm going to spend my time with those who will bring a high level of respect and responsibility. And so let me read you about wonder. Then if I know whose I am and who I am and what I'm called to do, and I know where I start and where I stop, and I partner with wonder and I order my brain, then what would the world be like if we would look for the wonder in others? What is wonderful about them? What wonderful things did God deposit in them? Wonder isn't something we get from people, but something that we give to them. It isn't based on their behavior. Wonder is what heaven sees. Heaven knows their unfolding destiny. And so could we look at people like that? And again, I'm not asking us to bring dysfunctional people into our life and letting them have audience with us. They're sharks and piranhas and they're on the outside in the concentric circles. But then they're not going to get equal time. They're not going to get equal space in my mind. And when I do think about them, I'm going to keep my love on towards them. And I'm not going to entrust them with things that are really valuable, but I know that they're worth They're worth everything to Jesus. Again, how do we evaluate worth? It's by what people are willing to pay. The price that people are willing to pay is what the worth is. And Jesus paid it all for them. And so it's not a matter of being optimistic or pessimistic. It's not that, well, the glass is half full. I'm an optimist, zippity-doo-dah. Or it's not, well, poo-poo on you, the glass is half empty. I'm not a pessimist. It's that I know the one who fills the glass. And I can order my brain to find him in every environment that I go into. Not initially out of desperation and where I need him to meet my needs and I need him to show up and I need to build to Jesus like a Build-A-Bear. But I'm so connected with him and so in tune with him that could I possibly be with my reticular activating system activated, and he is my north. He is the direction that I go back to every single time. And he's the one that I'm following, and he's more normal than not. It's as if I'm praying without ceasing. And all of a sudden, then I have the mind of Christ and the emotions of Christ and I know the will of Christ. And even if it's hard and things are terrible and I'm going through a great deal of agony and I feel like I've been sucker punched and I'm in the pit, could I be okay and order my brain? You know, they say hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so I heard recently about concentration camps. And if somebody is taken into captivity and they're put in a concentration camp, and if they have hope, there's a difference between grief and trauma. As I'm grieving, I still have hope. And no matter what we've been through, we can always have hope. We have hope in Christ that one day he's going to return, that he is our bridegroom, our king, and our judge. And he's going to make the wrong things right. He's going to wipe away every tear. He's going to bring justice. That's who he is. But if I have speechless terror, if I have trauma, then I'm suffering and I don't have hope. And so they put these people in concentration camps and in order to really terrorize them and for the majority of them not to survive, they circulated a rumor throughout the camp that they were all going to be rescued right before Christmas. And so the rumor was circulated and they mustered up this hope inside of them and they were going to be rescued before Christmas. And then Christmas came and Christmas went and they weren't rescued. It was actually the torturers who circulated that rumor. And again, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And it was actually after Christmas that they all gave up and they died or they killed themselves. And then shortly after that period of time, then the rescuers came, but it was too late. And so we have to have hope that even in light of eternity, if it's not on this side of eternity, then on the other side of eternity, he's going to make the wrong things right. And so there's a term that I want to introduce to you, and it's called cognitive dissonance. And it actually creates a great deal of stress. It's when we act like we believe something, but internally the things that we think don't line up with what we're acting like or what's coming out of our mouth. So there's a big, vast discrepancy between the two things. And so a lot of times in the Christian circles, we'll see it. And let's just say that I've been in an accident and my arm is about to fall off. I'm going to over-exaggerate this. And I'm going around and it's clear that my arm is about to fall off. And you come up to me and say, Lori, I noticed that there's something going on with your arm. What happened to your arm? And I looked at it, my arm, and I said, oh, my arm's fine. Well, physically, my arm hurts and visibly my arm is not fine, but then inside of me, I'm telling you that my arm is fine. Cognitive dissonance. We see it a lot in human trafficking where the pimp says, I love you to the girl, and then he beats her almost unrecognizable and then showers her with gifts. So it doesn't match up. It creates a great deal of anxiety and stress and actually does a real number on our brain. And so instead of that, we need to be real about the situation. I'm not saying let's be in denial. Let's create cognitive dissonance with what's going on with our reticular activating system and the things that we focus on. So a better answer in the arm situation would be, Yes, I was in an automobile accident. I've injured my arm. It doesn't look good, but I know what's even greater than medicine and doctors and the situation that I'm in right now, and that's Jesus. And if Jesus shows up and he heals my arm, if Jesus shows up but if Jesus doesn't show up in the concentration camp, he's given me the grace for today. And whether or not I'm rescued before or after Christmas, or whether I'm rescued tomorrow or the next day, he'll give me the grace for the day. And for today, here's my survival plan. And his grace is sufficient for today. And hope deferred makes the heart sick. And if for some reason he leaves me here, I love what Mother Teresa would say. She had these visions and she had the plans, and people were dying. People were hurting. It reminds me of the work that we do. And she needs resources, or she needs this, or she needs that. And if the thing didn't come in that she needed to do the work that she was invited to do, then her response would be, I guess God's not in that big of a hurry for that right now. And when he's ready, I'll have what it takes. And so just to reiterate how important this is, what we behold, we become. How we order our brain. He could be right here. He is right here. We're his sheep and we hear his voice and he's with us always. And he could be right here. We'll never get more of him. It's actually our ability then to bring him into our perception. And it's a beautiful process. And if you think about these techniques and this thing with the reticular activating system, then how do we make a lasting impression? Our brain is ordered for survival and simplicity. So we take what's familiar and we put it into the subconscious. Or if we are in a threat, then we flip our lid. But there's something else called novelty that I want to make note of. And this is really, really interesting. As we work with human trafficking victims, we can go into the church setting with people that look like me, and I can tell them about human trafficking victims, but they don't really want to hear it from me. They want to hear it from the human trafficking victim. Why? Because it's novelty. They may not know a human trafficking victim. They've never seen a human trafficking victim. For us, when we go into Africa or when we go into the track, there's a prostitution, human trafficking track. And people that look just like me and act like me go down to this track, and we offer friends from hard places that are doing unimaginable things, resources that they need, or water, or a purse, or makeup, or whatever that is, with no strings attached. And they have hundreds of people that'll come up and proposition them for sex, or they'll want to know how much, or they'll ask them if they want to buy drugs, or there'll be violent things. And those things are normal in their environment and are filed in the subconscious. But when you have somebody that looks like me, or a church lady, or somebody who comes up with no strings attached, no agenda except to connect and to let them know that they're valued and that they're seen and that they're heard, and that Jesus loves them, and do they want what we have, then that dings their reticular activating system. That is novelty. That is out of the ordinary. And so if we want somebody to pay attention to what we're doing, if we want to make a lasting impression, then if we could utilize novelty, something that's not in the ordinary, something that will grab someone's attention, then we can have a lasting impression as we then are meant to impact and to make disciples. And so think about, again, novelty or subconscious, or how your brain organizes things. Have you ever driven from your house to your workplace, or from your house to school, or from your house to your parents' house, or a familiar place, and not remembered driving? Why? Because your brain ordered and filed that as nothing extraordinary, and because your brain is ordered for simplicity, to burn and to expend as few as calories as possible, because after all, your brain already consumes 25% of your caloric intake, then your brain didn't really file or store that memory because it's just ordinary simplicity. But if you were going to that familiar place, if I was driving from my house to the filming location and I'm here every day and it's really familiar, and if I didn't store a memory, but one day I'm driving here and somebody pulls out in front of me and flips me off and almost hits me, then I'm going to remember that. Because why? Because it got my attention. My brain is ordered for survival. And so as we start to think about the psychoeducation, the how our brain is ordered, the how we store memories, that of course I'm going to remember negative and not positive, that of course Jesus is always here. He's right here with me, but I have to purposefully focus on him. And I can't say I don't want to do this. I have to have an image of what I want it to look like. And I have to make decisions and choices based on that. I can't create a void and a vacuum in me by getting rid of some of the negative things and not filling those with Christ, or I'll just fill them with other things that will just be equal to, or sometimes even worse than. I can't say I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to repeat the same patterns. I actually have to behold what it looks like. And then we have to wonder. We have to give each other the benefit of the doubt. First impressions typically come from somewhere. So who did that person remind me of, and what haven't I healed from? And so these things are critical as we go through our day, and this will help us as we order our brain, again, within the boundaries of where our brain is meant to stay, that we can't just let it have a free-for-all. I just can't eat whatever I want, that I have to be intentional. We have to be intentional about what we think. And so as you've had a really good foundation with your brain and brain principles and how your brain operates, and of course you did all of those things in the past. Of course you did. And you survived, and let's celebrate from where you've come from, but you don't have to stay there. And with Jesus and with their connection with him and knowing who you are and with the community, safe people, then you can actually change your life. And so now we're going to transition from connection and psychoeducation into routine, where the rubber meets the road and you're going to do the hard work. I'll see you next time.